ahead and hit the record. Okay, welcome everyone to today's HWN event. Our topic is Find Your Voice. My name is Teresa Morris and I'm the Global Director of the Functional Academies within Harman University, and I'm your producer today. Without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and hand it over to our first presenter, Dave, to get us started.
Hello, and thank you everyone. This is an incredible event called Find Your Voice. It's an empowerment event, as Teresa mentioned, sponsored by the Harman Women's Network. Without a doubt, we would have preferred to have met with you in person. However, with the magic of technology and a little help from our IT department, we are able to meet with you virtually and for the first time include our campus of Richardson, Texas as well. Good afternoon, Texas colleagues. My name is Dave Tavisi. I am the Vice President and General Manager of the Luxury Audio Business Unit for Harman. I'm also a member of the Leadership Committee of the Northridge chapter of Harman's Women's Network. On behalf of the entire Leadership Committee, I thank you for taking a little break from your daily activities to join us in this spirited panel discussion. We have some great speakers on tap for you to listen to and take in. Before we get started, I would also remind you to everyone that you've been entered into some great door prizes. And we will do a random drawing at the end and we will announce the winners at the conclusion of this event. So now let me introduce you to the moderator for today's panel. For more than 25 years, she has been the driving force for empowering women in the consumer electronics industry. She is a respected expert in marketing technical products and luxury goods to women across the globe. She's the managing director of the Technology Insider Group, the publisher of the Technology Designer magazine, and the founder of the Women in Consumer Technology. It's a trade organization that she founded back in 2008. She has been providing thought leadership on how women in leadership roles strengthen an organization, much like Harman. She is not only a voice for women in our industry, but a friend of mine. Ladies and gentlemen, our moderator, Carol Campbell.
Thank you all for joining us today to celebrate women in technology and leadership roles. Our goal is to give women the tools to take charge, find pride and power at work, and to learn to never miss a moment to lead in their industry segment. To get started, let me introduce each of our panelists and have them tell you a bit about themselves. Mary Joseph is the Vice President, Digital Leadership, Lifestyle Audio Division at Harman International. Mary?
Thank you, Carol. I have been, this is Mary Joseph. I'm the VP of Digital for Lifestyle Division. And I have been in Harman for 10 years, so I know many of you. I also worked for Trill for 2 years, so I also know the Trill folks. And thank you for this opportunity. And I'm looking for this panel discussion.
Awesome. Randy Levin is the Chief Information Officer at NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Randy?
Hi, thank you for this opportunity for me to talk to you all. I am the CIO of JPL, the Jet Propulsion Lab. We're the ones that lands thing on Mars, and now we have a helicopter that's going to land with the rover, hopefully in February. I have been a long tenured CIO. I was the Chief Technology Officer for the city of LA for 5 years, and I've had other CIO jobs as well. So I really look forward to talking with all of you today.
Well, welcome, Randy. And Karen Schoenbart. Karen is the CEO at the NPD Group and a best-selling author of Mom BA, Essential Business Advice from One Generation to the Next. Karen?
Thanks, Carol. I'm delighted to be here with this esteemed panel. NPD doesn't stand for New York Police Department. It's actually the 8th largest market research firm. We track all sorts of industries, including the consumer electronics industry. And in addition to what Carol said, I'm also a wife, a mother of 2 grown children, and the grandmother of a Boston Terrier named Ripley.
Thanks, Karen. Our panelists represent 3 very diverse industry sectors. So let's start by asking each of you how you're helping to promote opportunities for other women. Mary?
Thank you, Carol. So this is close to my heart, right? We wanted to, but somebody promoted me. Men or women doesn't matter, and it's an obligation and a responsibility for me to promote other women. And I do this in multiple ways. So one, participation in Hormone Women's Network, right? When we started this back in 2015, I was championing as a part of Northridge for about 18 months. And I continue to participate actively in this forum. In addition, we also have a digital women's network within just the digital women. And I'm also a leader in that aspect there as well. So in addition to promoting through these forums, I also have a simple thing such as an open door policy, right? I'm accessible to people. I break down the hierarchy. I talk to everyone. Anybody can reach out. So that gives me a way of working with several individuals, provide them feedback, offline mentoring on an ongoing basis, very tailored to their need. So these are multiple ways I promote women and provide them opportunities to look up beyond what they see.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Mary. How about you, Randy?
Well, I echo a lot of the comments that Mary has made, because throughout my career, I thought it was almost an obligation, but something that I really wanted to do was to help promote women. Nobody helped promote me, and so I view it as an opportunity to give back. I recently hired a deputy, my number 2, and she is a woman, and I'm acutely aware of trying to make sure that I'm developing the women in my organization and outside of my organization, because I think that women need to help women. And it's been more of a focus the last, I would say, 10 years, and certainly the last 5 years. But I think it takes a concerted effort, because I don't think that women promote themselves as well as men, generally speaking.
Karen, what's your take?
Well, when my daughter was growing up, she realized that she had a benefit because she had me as a live-in mentor. And she said she felt like she got a mom VA. And she encouraged me to write a book for people who didn't have a mother like me growing up. And so I wrote Mom VA. And then I met Carol, and Carol got me on the women's speaking circuit. And so I spent a fair amount of time kind of paying it forward by sharing my story and my journey, and how if I could be successful, others could. And I wanted to pay it forward by sharing some of the learnings that I've had along my career. And so I spent quite a bit of time now doing that.
And well done, I might add. So all of you, share with us the top challenge that you personally have experienced in your career, and tell us how you faced that challenge. Let's start with you, Randy.
I think that, and I will even add that it does still happen today, but people will see a woman, people will see me, and they don't think that I could possibly be a CIO or know what I'm doing. And I'm pretty down to earth. As these ladies can attest, we've had some nice conversations. And I think they take that as, and a mom and, a sister and every other role that I play. But they don't think that I really know what I'm talking about. So I go into a meeting and we will, start discussing a topic, and then I will speak, and it was oh, she really does know what she's talking about. It generally is with a group of men CIOs. That's usually, how this happens. And so I think, I have had to in my past, and still do have to almost overcompensate. Now I don't, not as much. Now, the minute I talk, people realize that I know what I'm talking about. But I think for many women, that is the perception. And particularly if you're younger and if you're cute and whatever, they think that you are not, you're not proficient in your field and in your craft. And I think that is something that women still have to overcome. That was a big one for me.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Karen?
Well, I had a lot of challenges, and I talk about many of them in my book. Moving into a management role from an individual contributor role was a big challenge. Taking a lateral role when all my friends and peers got promoted was a big challenge. But the biggest one, and I think we'll talk about it a little later, was overcoming the imposter syndrome. So I'll save that for maybe later in the conversation. But to me, that was probably the biggest. And it's probably because of what Randy said, where, you have this sort of insecurity forced upon you from a young age, particularly if you're in, a CIO or in business or some of the fields that we're in.
Yeah, and that's going to be a very lively discussion in a little bit. So, Mary, round it out for us. How about you?
So challenges are inevitable, right? So, and I had my fair share all through my career, no doubt about that. From my own mistakes, creating a challenge, to fitting in an organization, to gender-based challenges, to I have also seen saboteurs as well as backstabbers. So I have seen it all. But the point is, what do you do with them? Right? There are two things that come into my mind. One is the way I made the challenges into an opportunity, right? It gave me an opportunity to look into myself, look into my surroundings. How do I deal? How do I handle? So I made pretty much all of my challenges into an opportunity. And the second thing, when I look into all my challenges what is the common factor, how I dealt with it is through the relationships, sponsorships, and allyships that I built, who helped to succeed, manage, mitigate, and get through it very effectively. So challenges are inevitable, but it's not what you encounter, but how do you manage it and how do you ensure you don't get into it again?
That's the key. That is absolutely the key. So was there one person in your career who recognized that you were on a road to stardom before you did, Randy?
I did have a manager when I worked for Price Waterhouse as a consultant, and he sat down with me and he said, "You have a lot of skills to be able to succeed in your career. What are your career aspirations?" And I just planned out the next move. I didn't plan out 5 moves, and I certainly didn't think at that time I'd be a CIO. And he was very influential in helping me, really kind of to the next level in my career. He was a terrific mentor. And so I sort of just adopted him as my mentor, because there wasn't a formal mentorship program then.
Well, that's what you have to do. Karen, how about you?
Well, I want to give a quote. Being pro-women doesn't mean you have to be anti-men. And I think there's plenty of men, David's a great example, who are supportive of women. And I was very fortunate that the owner of NPD and my boss always saw something in me and really pushed me when I wasn't sure about taking a position. He really pushed me and encouraged me. And I'm very grateful that he did that. And, then I wanted to live up to his expectations. But sometimes I needed that extra push. And I think that any of us in leadership roles now need to remember that we should pay that forward and push other people, because sometimes they do have that imposter syndrome or whatever, and they don't think that they can necessarily do what they're capable of.
Well, from my experience, you and Todd have been fantastic partners. Mary, how about you?
So, as Karen and Randy says, I do have people who pushed me, right? All along my life, there has been people helping me, pushing me, guiding me through it. But my recent one, whom I could say is many from Harvard know, is my former boss, Marty O'Brien. He was the CIO from 2011 to 2017. And the time he came on board, he was getting onboarded himself, right? He was getting on board. I had opportunity to meet with him more often to talk about the work that I'm doing and the layout and the projects, etc. He recognized me, and within a couple of months, he pulled me into as his direct report, which gave me enormous amount of visibility, opportunity. And not alone he gave me opportunity, he also identified the gaps, the skill gaps, and gave me specific opportunities to grow to be where I am today. So my thanks to Marty O'Brien.
Well, let's find out more from the audience with a polling question. Teresa?
Okay, I've gone ahead and opened up the polling question. So the question is, who helped you realize that you could reach your full potential? So we have a couple of choices here. The first one is a family member, a coworker, manager, mentor, or was it yourself? So we'll give you just a few minutes, maybe 30 more seconds to answer the question. You should see the question has popped up on the right side of your screen. And when you make your choice, please don't forget to click the submit button. All right, we'll just give you about 30 seconds to complete your answers. It looks like we're almost halfway through, so that's good. We have about 36 people who still need to make a choice. Okay, we'll leave it open for about 10 more seconds. Okay, all right, you should be able to see the polling results now, Carol.
Yeah, I do. And I'm really impressed that a tremendous amount obviously saw it in themselves. And I think that's a really wonderful sign. Obviously, a manager, a mentor, and a family member are pretty much equal. Interesting that coworker is rather low on the scoreboard, and I have to wonder what that means as it applies to the relationship that you have with your peers as you are going up the ladder. And I think that's probably another management skill that we're going to touch on in this conversation, because that's kind of glaring to me. So with that being said, Randy, I'm going to come back to you first. How does your organization encourage mentoring and sponsorship of your employees?
There's several ways. We have a Women in Technology group, and up to COVID, could meet in person, do various events, also give people opportunities to speak. We have an informal mentorship program that they're actually working on the formal mentorship program right now, our HR organization. But in lieu of that, we've been able to identify people that act as mentors and will mentor either one or two, usually not more than two, women in the field of technology. And also, like Mary Joseph said, I do have open office hours to drop in, and so people do take advantage of that. And so I think there's all these various ways, and they all play a role.
Well, and what tips can you suggest for exploring these options to create that scenario, Karen?
Well, I think formal mentoring programs have their place, but mentoring programs work best when it's really natural and organic and people have a real connection. And keep in mind, this is not my quote, but I loved it. I had heard this one. There are mentors for a reason, mentors for a season, and mentors for life. And so mentors are the things you look for when you need something. And it could be a coworker in that case. It could be a subordinate. It could be a peer. It could be a family member. And they can come and go. Sponsors, on the other hand, are the people who see something in you, believe in you, and help push your career along. And how do you find sponsors? It's not so easy, but one suggestion would be to get out of your comfort zone, get out of your own job and volunteer, get involved in things. If there's a women's group, if there's a task force, because that's how you can get to meet people outside of your sphere. That's how you can get to work with senior people. Then they see something in you, and then they might help you along in your career. So those are a few thoughts, Carol.
That's one of my very, very favorite ones, Karen. I know you wrote about it, but it's also something that I have lived in terms of volunteering and, ending up in an opportunity with, much more senior than me people, and to, expose yourself to who those people are and to shine. So Mary, do you have a mentor? Tell us about your experiences.
Yes, I do have a mentor, and I'm going to just say the names because they are in common. Melissa Rausch, who probably is in this call, who has been my mentor for a while, and Rob Santana, who is the marketing leader for Harman, is also my mentor. So I do have mentors, and I've always had mentors in Harman and outside of Harman. And when you look into it, giving an example, right? Real-time example. 2 years ago, there was an one of my PM left Harman. So I was helping them in Northridge. At that time, helping them, so they liked me, right? So they said, hey, we have an open position. You are helping us out. Why don't you just come in? I was debating that because it was a lateral role. I wasn't sure about it, and my boss was pushing it, and the folks from the pro division was pushing it. But I just didn't. I just didn't buy into it yet. Finally, ended up calling the former CFO, who was Herbert Parker. He just left the company at that time, and I said, you know what? I reached out to him. He has been mentoring me in a very different way at that time, helping me, guiding me, and coaching me. And he was the one to help me out to say that's the right thing to do. And I'm so glad for all the folks who helped me. So mentorship plays a critical role for me. It provides me guidance and support where and when I needed it.
Thanks. So let's do a quick poll on the awareness of the Harmon Mentoring Program. Teresa?
Yep, I've gone ahead and opened up the poll. So it's simple, yes or no. Are you aware of the programs that Harmon has for mentorship? And we'll leave it open for just about 30 seconds because it's a pretty easy question, right? It's either you know it or you don't.
I'm hoping for 100% here.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. We still have a couple people who need to make a choice. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll, and we should be able to see the results now, Carol.
Significant. Okay, 63%. I'm going to take that as a home run. And the 16% that don't know, I'm hoping that those of you who do will reach out to your friends and your colleagues and your associates and introduce them to the program. Make your friends and associates aware of the success that you've had with the program. And worst case, if you really need someone local, please do reach out to your local HR business partner for more information. So Randy, we talk a lot about creating opportunity. What does that mean? And give us some examples of success stories.
I think you always have to be aware of what's going on, not just within your own company, but within your industry and within your field. And the only way you can ever really create opportunities is by just knowing and having an awareness of that. So, you know, they talk about, you know, your personal brand and understanding that, that's part of that too. And so there are times where you know, if you're in this whole sphere, that you actually can identify a potential role for yourself where maybe there wasn't one before.
Hmm.
And, you know, I've done that in my career as well. And also then, you know, expanding your role, your existing role. Just because your job description says A, B, C, D, and E doesn't mean you can't go do F and G that you've thought about, or you talk to your boss and say, you know what, I think there's a more opportunity here for us to do this kind of thing. And don't wait, just do it. You know, I think that part of women generally, sometimes they ask for permission, and I'm saying you create opportunity, you see a need, go do it, and be proactive. And that would be my advice to this, you know, great group of women, that don't wait and don't ask for permission, because, you know, then people, you know, as a supervisor, as a boss, they don't see people taking initiative, and we want to see people taking initiative.
Ask for forgiveness, not for permission.
Exactly. And I had a boss at one point who said to me, Carol, it's more fun to be an architect than it is to be a maintenance man. So, you know, build on what you know. Karen, what advice do you have for all the women to help them succeed in their current role or move up the ladder?
Well, the first thing is, I think Randy kicked it off with this, you have to be competent in your current job. That is the first thing. You have to make sure that you're honing your skills so that you can do your job really, really well. That's first and foremost. The second thing is, you know, work hard, go above and beyond, bring your A game. I can think of many examples in my own career where working hard and going above and beyond helped get me where I am. The third is, as we talked about earlier, volunteering for things. You know, be the one who identifies a problem, but don't be the whiner. Go into somebody senior and say, I've identified this problem and I'd like to help fix it. You know, what can I do to get involved and help? And come proactively, as Randy said, with ideas. And then the last one, which I don't think you should underestimate, is the importance of networking. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for networking. I met somebody at CES who said, "Oh, Karen, blah, blah, blah. Do you know Carol Campbell?" I'm like, "No." And she said, "I think you should meet Carol." You know, Carol, that led to other things, that led to other things, that led to other things, led to me being here. So do not underestimate the value in networking and getting to know people, give to get. Sometimes it may not come back to help you in any way, but so what? Sometimes it will. And, you know, again, I could give you dozens of examples of where networking has propelled people's careers. You know, sometimes it is who you know.
Well, and we should probably point out to those who have not yet read your book that that woman, her name is Leslie, but in the book her name is Lois, and she is the one that introduced Karen and I. And as Karen says, it's been a beautiful thing and a really great relationship. And I appreciate your being here today with the other wonderful, wonderful participants as well. So, Randy, I'm going to come back to you.
One thing I wanted to add to that is a friend of mine always said is network is your net worth. Which is so true. Which is our relationships, the allyship sponsorship that we build are very important too, where we have to go.
And I hear a lot of people say, "I'm not comfortable networking." Trust me, nobody's comfortable networking. So just get over it.
Well, and there's a woman, I can't remember her name, but I know that she's also based on Long Island, and she wrote a book about networking. And I took away from that book that networking is about giving. It's not about getting. And so if you go into the conversation and the relationship with the idea and the notion of what can I give you to help you, what you get back is probably going to be exponential, but that's not your expectation. And I thought that was really good advice in terms of, you know, being more comfortable with the idea of networking.
Yeah, and Carol, I'll just add one more thing. Sometimes junior people say to me, "Well, what could I offer you?" And I'm saying, just ask. Just ask, what can I do for you? And you'd be surprised. Like for me, it might be help promote my book on social media because you know how to do that better than I do. But ask the question. Why not? You have nothing to lose, and then you can make a connection with a more senior person than you might not have thought could happen.
That's my example for sure, is that, you know, my younger mentors are, you know, really, really, really adept at social media. I didn't grow up with social media. They're the smartest person in the room. I'm not. So, you know, mentoring can go both ways. I think that's a very important point. So, Randy, you know, there's different skill sets, and we talked a little bit about this for managing up, down, and sideways. Give us some examples of what that means, and especially how that sideways might be reflected in that poll of coworkers not being someone to recognize your specialness.
I think what everybody has to do is learn how to communicate and then know your audience. You know, you have to think to yourself, for your bosses, do they need to know every single thing? Do they need to know how the sausage is being made, or is the fact that the sausage is just made? You know, you need to think about that because some want to know that and some don't. And so tailoring your message and making sure you're clear is really important. On the sideways side, it's kind of the same because it depends who your peer is, but you know, most of the time, you know, they don't want to know how the sausage is made. They just want to know, what are you doing for them? You know, as a CIO for me, what are you doing for them? And then what can they be doing for you? And make it a reciprocal kind of conversation. But again, doing it at a level that people can understand, because there's a lot of technical people here. And a lot of times, you know, you do techno babble and somebody else's eyes glaze over. And so that doesn't happen at JPL very often because we literally do have rocket scientists, you know, so I can't use that, you know, rocket science thing. But anyway, you know, they don't necessarily know everything that I know. So it's a reciprocal thing, but you really have to think about how you're communicating, particularly when you're communicating technical concepts above and to the side. And then when you're communicating down, it's just to make sure that you're clear. You know, a lot of times when you have people that work for you, if you are not communicating clearly, they cannot do what you need them to do. So it's really taking the time to say, you know, is my messaging clear? Was I clear on the deliverables? Was I clear on the date? And then for anybody that's, at that level, they need to make sure that they're clear. And if they're not, they need to you all need to ask questions. We're not mind readers. So we will never be mind readers, at least in my lifetime. So what are you not clear about? Let's have a conversation about it. So if you are getting direction and you don't know what to do, then you really need to speak up and ask for clarity. So hopefully that helps.
That was a big lesson for me when I started to manage people, and my opening gamut typically was, if you ask questions, or if you think you don't know something, you think that makes you look bad. If you don't ask questions, it makes me uncomfortable because you can't possibly know everything. You can't. And so by virtue of, I think it's a strength. You think it's a weakness. Let me just be clear. I think, the more questions you ask, the more comfortable I'm going to be with, what your commitment level is. So, Teresa, are we going to launch this poll question first?
Yes, let's do that. Okay, so I've opened up the polling question, and the question is, do you think it's any easier today for women to reach organizational leadership roles than it was 10 years ago? And so we're giving you 3 choices this time, a yes, a no, or a maybe. And I'll leave it open for about 30 seconds because, again, it's just a quick reaction. And don't forget to click the submit button when you're done. And we're already 60% of the way through. So let's just see what we get in the next 20 seconds or so.
You have a very responsive audience.
Yes, it is a very responsive audience. Okay, don't forget to click the submit button. And we've got a couple people still in progress, 17 who have not started. But let's just give it 7 more seconds. Okay, I'm going to head and close the poll. It is just giving us a little, we have to wait. There were a couple people in progress, so like a 10-second wait here to give those that were in progress a chance to finish up. 10 seconds doesn't seem like a long time till you're waiting on a poll. And then it's like forever.
So somebody tells you you have 10 seconds to speak, and it's like, feel free. Stretch.
All right, Carol, you should be able to see the results now.
I can. And I'm really, really happy to see at least a better than half, 55% think the answer is yes. The maybe, I completely relate to that. And the no is very tiny, small number. So I'm happy to see that as well. But I'm going to turn back to our panel and ask you guys the same question. So Mary, what do you think?
I think it is easy to get to do a leadership role compared to 10 years ago. So the reasons being is several, right? One is in a competitive environment where we are, a diverse team, and the results that helps the results that produces the bottom line of the company becomes very important. And therefore, leaders now believe we need to have a diverse team where women are what become the diverse team. So that is one of them, right? In addition to that, also there is an awareness of equal opportunity and the importance of equal opportunity. Combination of these two, I believe, is giving the opportunity today what we didn't have 10 years ago.
Karen, what do you think?
Well, I'm the data person, so I'll give some data. I don't have data from 10 years ago, but in April of 2018, on the Fortune 500 list, there were 23 women CEOs. Here's the sad part. There were 21 men named John. So there were almost as many men named John as there were women CEOs. Now, the latest Fortune just came out September 10th, and out of the 500, there was a whopping, they called it whopping, 39 women CEOs. Now, I wouldn't consider 39 whopping, but it is record-breaking. So there were 39 women CEOs compared to 2 years ago, only 23. So clearly, that is a sign that at the the tippy top, and these are Fortune 500 companies. So I do think that the more we tell our stories and the more we show all of you out there that it's possible, the more you can believe. And I think that's believing is a big part of getting there.
Randy, what do you think?
I do think it's easier because there has been some precedent setting. But I echo what Karen is saying. I mean, those numbers are not standing. And, it's funny. I was reminded of a time where I heard Ruth Bader Ginsburg, may she rest in peace. I heard her speak about 6 years ago. And she was on a panel and somebody asked her how many women justices are enough. And she said 9 without a beat. I mean, she was like on it with 9, and so, why shouldn't we have 500 women that are running, the top, companies in the US and in the world? So I think we still have a lot of potential. I think also with the movement now of much more focus on diversity and inclusion, which isn't as much focused on women, but it is, we're part of the group. I think that, there's just, people are opening their eyes now to who they're hiring and, who's leading them. And so I think that the door was open, but I think it's now cracked open even more.
Well, it's something that, Mary, you might just want to expand on this, but as I got to know you and the company and at Dave's invitation, I was very impressed by the wealth of diversity training, inclusion policies that Harman has.
Absolutely. Harman is as a pioneer, it's trailblazing, and it comes from the top, right? Anything that comes from the top always helps. So it has become not just a company, it's become personal to everybody. We have Women's Forum, we have diversity groups, diversity and inclusion. Our CEO, and a few months ago, Dinesh Paliwal, he's an Indian man. And then we had the CFO, Sandy Rowland, who was a woman. So we had a lot of diverse group and the importance of it, right? So it is not DNA. Now it is not DNA. Every one of us believe in diversity, value the importance of it, and what it brings to the company.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. It always comes from the top. So, Karen, let's talk about the imposter syndrome. I know that you wrote about it in your book, but can you define that and what it means and share with us some of your own experiences?
Sure. So neither of my parents went to college. I wanted to be a teacher. I stumbled into this career. I didn't take business classes. And because of that, I always worried that someone was going to tap me on the shoulder and say, "We caught you. You don't really belong. You read People magazine." And so I had this fear all the time. And I went to a conference, it's now almost 20 years ago, and a woman professor named Victoria Medvick was speaking to 1,000 women at a women's conference. And she said, let's pretend that there's a CEO of an imaginary company, and the only criteria to be CEO is you'd have to be able to breastfeed. And she said, I can guarantee there will be men going, oh, okay, I know I can't actually breastfeed, but give me a shot at the job. Give me a chance. I've got kids, I've watched, I've helped things. Give me a shot at this job. And the women would be like, I don't know, I'm not sure. And then she went on to talk about this thing called the imposter syndrome, which was coined back in the 70s by some psychologists. And it's competent people who are afraid that they're going to be discovered as a fraud. And when I heard that this was a thing, my reaction was, oh my goodness, this is a thing? Like, this isn't just me. And it was like a giant weight lifted off my shoulders. And in talking to other people, particularly women, a lot of them had said that they experienced the exact same thing. And for me, it was just like a big relief that there wasn't something wrong with me, that it wasn't really me. And, and then I sort of started to figure out some ways we can talk about, in terms of overcoming it, but just knowing that this was something that other people felt and that I wasn't unusual in that helped me realize that this is not something I can let get in my way, and I can't be embarrassed about my success or second guess myself.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. You're all just so incredibly talented, experienced, and fun. So any other thoughts to close this panel discussion? Randy?
I just, hope that everybody's listening, all the women and the men. They're women, you have so much to offer, and don't be shy. Part of what Karen's saying, don't sit in the background, don't wait for somebody to come up to you, and don't wait for you to be like perfect on the next job description that you want to apply for and have ticked off every single box. Because employers, people like me, I'm looking for things that maybe not are on that piece of paper. Are you enthusiastic? Are you proactive? Are you curious? So there's all of these other attributes that are not on the job description. So market yourself, figure out how to do that. There's also a lot of online resources for how you do that and create your brand and talk about yourself. So be proactive, be CEO of yourself.
So you are the boss of me, basically, right? Karen, what do you think?
I'm going to build on what Randy said. You're probably already doing the next job. Knowing the women I know, they've checked every box and maybe one's left over. So if you're doing the next job, take the next job. You might as well get paid for it. You might as well get acknowledged for it. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Again, we talk a lot about fail fast. I like the expression, go, learn, iterate. So go for it.
Wash, rinse, repeat. Carrie, wrap it up for us.
Thank you, Carol. So a couple of things I wanted to bring. The foundation of my career is building the credibility, doing the right thing always. So that is one of the foundation under which my career is built on. The second one is working hard consistently, not one time, not two times. It's consistently working hard and working smart. And I love what I do, right? So these are my foundation of my career, and that built where I am today. So in closing, I wanted to say something. As you see in this image, right, the part is the same, but there are the three women carrying it, and they carry it different, right? We are all different. How we execute our responsibilities are different. Identify your goals, find your own voice which reflects you, which you are comfortable with to achieve the goals. With that, I wanted to say my sincere thanks to Carol, Karen, and Randy for an insightful and an inspiring and uplifting discussion. I am certainly very much honored and humbled to be part of this panel. With that, thank you.
Well, thank you all. And let's queue up our audience Q&A through the chat box. Teresa?
Okay, great. So the chat box is open, and we do want to have a chance to respond to all of your questions. So please feel free to add them in the chat box. Because we have a larger audience today, we're not going to be able to unmute anyone or everyone, so we'll respond through the chat box. So the first question that came in, and I believe this one would be for Karen, as you talked about the imposter syndrome, what are some of the behaviors that you would recommend to help individuals overcome this situation?
Great question. So I have three things. One, start a fan file. Start a file of your accomplishments. It'll help you when you're looking for your next job. It'll help you if you're feeling down. It's a go me file, right? The second thing is don't compare yourself to others. Be your best self. Comparing yourself to others does comparing yourself to others doesn't do any good. Be you. And then I would add, focus not just on your weaknesses. Clearly, we all have to kind of improve. But if you can focus on your strengths, figure out what you're really good at and become even better at it, that's the thing that could make you a winner. Think about it in sports. Think about it in many ways. So figure out, and then you'll love what you do, right? Because if you can do something you're good at, it's more fun. So don't forget to focus on your strengths, not just your weaknesses.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so this next one, I'll just open it up to anyone who would like to answer. The next question is about for men. So what can men do to champion women's careers? What are some of the things that maybe they could start doing or maybe even stop doing?
I'll take part of that, and I'll say that when you have women in your organization and you're having meetings and the women don't speak up, encourage them, speak up. Or sometimes, for me, I just call on them. You know, I'm totally known for that. If people are just thinking they're lurking in the background, I just call on them. And so I think, men, if you could make sure that the women in your organizations are participating and sometimes can't compete with the voices, that you make a concerted effort to hear them.
Okay, good. And the next question that we have is, how can you balance the time to mentor and to also maintain a high-powered career? I find there is not enough hours in the day.
Is that to anybody?
It's to anybody. Let's start with you, Randy.
It's hard. I'm not going to lie. You know, I think that the working from home situation, at least for me and our organization, is we're working more and people think you're available more. And so, because where else are you going to go during COVID? So because of that, I really have to be very mindful of my calendar and set my boundaries very clearly. And I do make an effort, you know, every week to say, who am I going to mentor? You know, I have to set aside some time. If I don't, I won't be able to do it. So I have been extremely vigilant about my calendar management, you know, particularly now more than even before.
So I'll build on that. I color code my calendar, and I don't try to get balance in a day or a week. I try to get it over the course of a month. And I've got employee relations or mentoring as one color, personal as a color, clients as a color, long-term versus short-term. So I can look at the course of a month and make sure I've got like a rainbow of colors.
Okay, good. So it sounds like the key is time management.
And prioritization,
Yeah.
you have to make it a priority and make it something. But I think I don't speak for all three of you, but I speak for myself, and please chime in. It's very rewarding. It feels really good to have that, someone who appreciates you, appreciates the time that you've spent with them, and that they turn around someday and say to their boss, she helped me, she taught me, she brought me up. And that's the beauty of women in consumer technology. We want to be that organization that people say, that's what we did to help me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. All right, I'm going to pause here for 1 second and just open up our feedback form so that if everyone could just take a minute to answer. There's 5 questions. We do use this feedback to improve our programs going forward. And we're going to take, I think, one more question, and then I'm going to show the winners of our door prizes and talk you through how we chose them. Okay, so the next question is, do you think that it's possible for women to really have it all, to be the CEO and to have the family?
Yes. So it depends upon what having it all means. If having it all is having a family and a career and a great family and a great career, absolutely 100% you can do that. Now, I'm not saying there aren't sacrifices. I didn't watch TV. I didn't get my nails done. I didn't have much of a social life. The priority was my family, and my career. And I would just say it's really hard now, but try to compartmentalize. And when you're, well, I used to say when you're home, be home, and when you're at work, be at work. So I would just say when you're working, be working, and when you're not working, try to be not working. And that's very hard today, but work on that discipline. And then I would also just say outsource as much as you can afford. You know, there's I don't like to cook, and back then there weren't that many options. Now there are hundreds of options. So outsource as much as you can afford, so you can be present in your present, and you can spend time doing the things you love with the people you love.
I just sacrifice my sleep.
Sleep.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. No.
That is one thing I do guard on my side. I guard my sleep. What about for you, Randy? What are your thoughts?
Again, it depends what having it all means, but you know, I think there's, you know, a woman wants to have a family, they should have a family. And I have two great kids that are awesome. You know, I did make some career changes and choices related to, you know, them growing up, and those were very active choices on my behalf, and my family's behalf. So, you know, can you do this and be a professional tennis player and, and have a family and stand on your head? I mean, I don't know how many things somebody can do. I can't do all of them. My priorities were my family and my career. And to me, that was having it all.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so while we wait for some other questions to come in, I'm going to go ahead and reveal our winners of our door prizes. So just give me 1 second.
Yeah, the trip is a bit more exciting than my book.
We did have a question. So while people are looking at this, Karen, we had a question regarding your book. So did you want to talk a little bit about that as we have a couple of minutes here at the end?
Sure.
There were some people interested in the title, as they can see from the slide. Go ahead.
Well, it's called Mom's EA, and it's really just the insider's guide to navigating the business workplace, everything from networking, dealing with your boss, international travel, the balancing act, managing lateral moves, just really, it's my career journey. It was kind of a labor of love, and it's told through stories and anecdotes, and you can find it on Amazon or any bookstore that you
Okay, I did see it on Amazon, so it is there. I agree. All right, so let's see. We've got a couple of it looks like we have two. Okay, so someone sent me a note that we have two go to speakers. So I will pick another winner and we'll let you know after. It's too late for me to add it to the slide, but I will pick one more person. And how we choose the winners, we pick some random numbers through a random number generator yesterday. So we had those numbers, and then as people entered the call, I took a moment in time, and then those people that were in that position. So if the number was 39 or 34, whatever the number was, and you were in that 34th position at that moment in time, then you won the prize. So we'll be communicating the prizes out to the entire group after the call, and we will pick one more winner for the Go speaker. And let's see, was there anything else, Carol? I guess I'll hand it back to you. Oh, wait a minute. We just had a question pop up, so let me.
You bring it up.
Yes, okay, so with the recent passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, it has become more evident that there is still a strong lobby to push the progress that women made in the country back to the 1950s. What can we do as employers and employees to prevent that?
Well, that's a big question, but I think first and foremost, the answer is vote. Just vote. Get out and vote. And when we talk about your voice matters and to know your voice, this is a critical time for you to speak up.
Yep. Okay. All right. Okay. With that, I will hand it back to you, Carol, to close us out.
Well, I just want to say thank you again, Mary, Karen, Randy. You've really been such a inspiration, and you're all so well spoken, so comfortable within your own, your own success. And I think that's really a mark of leadership, is to share that success and to use it to inspire others. I love the phrase that I heard over and over again, which is an open door policy. And I just want to say thank you again to my friend, Dave Tavisi, who invited Women in Consumer Technology and me to invite the three of you to share with their amazing international German Women's Network our stories. So thank you.
Such a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, everyone. And I think with that, Andy, you can go ahead and stop the recording.